Welcome to Eurobhyvecon 2025 in Zagreb. I'm delighted by the turnout. I'm delighted by about a half dozen people volunteering a little extra money for this free of charge event to cover costs, about €210. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I can't say that enough. And the official thank yous. Number one, EuroBSDCon for allowing this to happen. This is the second EuroBhyvecon. Patrick, you get a little thanks. So you move mountains. We all thank you, Mr. BSD TV. The donors have been a huge part of this. And Misha just blasted by. OpenBSD Amsterdam kindly sponsored. Thank you, Misha. Dank u wel. Philip. Netskamuna. I hope I pronounced that well enough.
Well, it's funny though.
Okay. As I tell the BSD can planners, Netskamuna rhymes with tuna. Thank you for your sponsorship. It helped keep costs down, keep this free. Alchemilla. We will be hearing from Haizam later today. He is behind the Silva project, and it's very exciting what they're doing. And Bell Tower IT out of New York, neighbor with Patrick back here, who has a representative, Katya. Welcome, thank you, and thank you for that sponsorship. And I trust some of you have heard of Colin Percival with Tarsnap. He's, I guess, the FreeBSD release engineer. I know him more recently as just an invaluable part of the BSD CAN planning team. And he kindly gave a ticket to one of our presenters today. So, yes, he's allowed Hans to join the conference because he could not attend. So, as a sponsor, it worked out great. This is the 10th anniversary. Things just kind of creep up on you as you just run on autopilot. BHiveCon happened pretty organically in Tokyo when Takuya Asada said, what if we had a get-together? Which was a week after I registered the domain bhivecon.org completely separately. I was like, okay, meant to be. And there was a lovely cadence every year at Asia BSDCon in Tokyo that started blossoming into the first BHiveCon in Ottawa at BSDCan. And then things went off the rails with lockdown and the pandemic, etc. So there was a little humble one during a dev summit in Tokyo. And Coimbra was the first EuroBhyvecon and the first sort of solid resurrection of it with a whole new approach, new energy, new blood, new projects, new everything. And now finally Zagreb. So what's next? I couldn't tell you, but I'm very excited. What is Beehive? I won't go too deep, don't worry. Hopefully you've heard of it. Has anyone not heard of this? You're in the room, but just in case, if Patrick... Okay, Patrick, for you, Beehive is a permissively licensed hypervisor developed for FreeBSD that has been ported to Illumos. Thank you, Hans. You played a role in that. To Project Acorn in macOS. There was a point there when macOS had a hypervisor framework and there was a Xhive front end to poke at it and make it happen. That's been largely superseded by UTM, but hey, it was the right thing at the right time. There might be other ports, but they're secret and I'm not telepathic, so maybe they're out there. But if you look around at, say, Project Acorn, which is a whole lot of Intel Corporation code, you still see headers from the original NetApp imported Beehive. So it's out there, it's a thing. It's as if licensing is important, but don't look at me. I need a volunteer. Are you my volunteer? Oh, I have a volunteer. I have a wonderful volunteer. So, as part of the 10th anniversary, there is a hypervisor which provides a broader host containment environment for virtual machines. And behold, the first Beehive swag. So one each has these out. Thank you so much. And as people return in, so inspired by the cork of Portugal from Coimbra, I thought, yeah, that works and it travels well. So yes, enjoy. A little Beehive history, super condensed. At MeetBSD, who remembers MeetBSD back in the day? Way back in the day. It was a Bay Area BSD conference put on by X Systems. And instead of breaking out for proper, separate, unconference discussions, we all filled the main room and discussed hypervisors because It was a pretty urgent topic. Hello, Boyan. Hello, hello. So that led to a smaller discussion in a little room up above the next day. And then this was the context of when Intel CPUs were starting to receive hardware acceleration like VTX. You've probably seen that pop up even on Windows, et cetera, et cetera. And then, surprise, the next year, BSD-CAN, after much caffeine in a cafe, Peter Grian came up with Beehive and gave a little introduction to it. It was quite the surprise. I wasn't supposed to be there because I didn't know you paid for Dev Summit things. It was super unclear. And I just happened to be in the room, happened to see it, and then happened to be the only person who reached out to them after the event to say, how do I try this? And so one thing led to another. And suddenly, come FreeBSD 10 in 2014, Beehive was pretty usable. It didn't have things like hard allocation of memory. Hello, Mecca. Hello, welcome. It was becoming a rather useful tool, especially for FreeBSD developers, because you could do a very low-level load with a user space Beehive load and do your work. And so the moment I heard that Kirk McKusick's using Beehive for his development, I'm like, well, that's what success looks like. Yay. So it sort of feeds itself. I'm so excited about that. So since 2010, back then when it first became kind of usable, we've had a few features show up. We've had NVMe emulation. Thank you, Chuck Tuffley. It's one of the finest out there. It's multi-queue. It's high performance. It's a very good piece of software. It's permissively licensed. I don't know if it's shown up elsewhere, but hey, that might show up in others. I suppose I could probably sync the video, but I'll stand over here. EDK2 support. That was huge. Yes?
Do you want questions and interjections?
I'm fine with interjections. The other speakers will represent themselves, but yes, Dave.
The NVMe, even though you try to hit the NVMe, it's so much faster. Even if you don't parallels with the you still lie over years tell me to.
So even if it's a spinning disk on the host, just tell the VM it's NVMe. It's a more efficient piece of software, and yes, that's a good thing. VirtIO block is super simple and elegant and should just be wildly fast, but it's, I believe, not multi-queue, and NVMe to the rescue, which naturally has all the benefits of developing towards NVMe by having a rather authentic device to poke at. But I digress. EDK2 is huge. You probably know it as UEFI, which allowed for suddenly a whole lot of operating systems, including Windows, to boot. And I'll never forget in Stockholm when, the DNS guy, it was like, we're missing one thing, Windows support. I'm like, yes. Wait for the talk to come. Beep, beep. VirtIO SCSI came along, 9P server out of Plan 9 FS. Paul Vixie said that. The Illumos port. Again, thank you, Hans and company, for doing that. Patrick Mooney has done some very heavy lifting there. Oxide, maybe you've heard of them. They are doing a hyper-converged platform with Beehive at the heart of it. Thank you, Oxide. You rock. Thank you, John Baldwin, for a comprehensive configuration file format. Very detailed descriptions of all the goodies that you hand over to your VM. Then 9P client support. Thank you, Doug Robson, who did it to serve his development work. So it's just such a close to home tool that's right at your fingertips in the base OS. That's a good thing. TPM pass-through and emulation. Thank you, Hans. With Windows 11, there's a moderately hard requirement for TPM support, especially for BitLocker and other stuff. And thank you, Corvin Kong, with Beckhoff, for producing their own pass-through, allowing a hardware one to show up in the VM, but that's not great if you have lots of VMs. So there was an existing properly licensed payload out there. Hans wired that up, and that became a recent feature. ARM64 support. Any ARM64 users here beyond the phone in your pocket? Yes. Ask Dave about his very cool deployment. So it took a while for me to appreciate ARM. There's power savings. There's fast. But what's truly, truly unique is that, as Oprah puts it, everyone gets a core. You can have up to 256 or 512 hardware cores. You can hand them out to your storage devices. You can hand them out to your network interfaces. You can hand them out to your virtual machines. Everyone's a winner. And you can have, back to the full 1960s Popek and Goldberg IBM mainframe virtualization, a very close hardware relationship, whereas traditionally under a PC, never really intended for this. Theo has some great quotes on that, with hyper-threading and, gosh, fingers crossed, who gets priority when you do stuff. ARM64 is very compelling there. Very, very, very. So thank you everyone who's made that happen. Andrew Waffa's here. Cambridge has done massive amounts of work. ARM Holdings, Andy at FreeBSD. Thank you all. That is very exciting. It is no longer limited to 16 vCPUs like Beehive in the early days. There's no PCI pass-through yet, but I'm sure it's coming, and that's all very compelling. And thank you, Boyan. There is NUMA support, which was counterintuitive at first, but when you're prototyping software with 2 sockets and NUMA domains and all that, you kindly added support for that. Do you want to say briefly what motivated that and how you use it? Virtual memory development work was the motivation for NUMA support in Beehive. In addition to leading the team here, he's recently added that. Thank you so much for that. And your team's been an absolute delight to work with. But the Beehive development model has never quite been formalized. It's often been a bunch of lone wolves and lots of expectations, yet super complex topics where in file systems and hypervisors, you really don't want to screw up. When things go wrong, they go really wrong at a really low level, and you either lose data or you lose control of the host and all the things. So it's been for all of you, perhaps as users, and me being close to the community and in some way, in tiny ways, helping define it and lead it and nudge it and beg and whatever it took. It muted. The Beehive problem. Maybe it's a management problem. Don't know. Maybe I'm to blame. I don't know. But close up to it, I think the fact that we had a broken AMD IOMMU, that was a shim to first get AMD off the ground, but was never quite complete. And thank you to the foundation who recognized that after working with users to clearly define the problem, because that's often a case in all things bug reporting. Come to my talk tomorrow about effective bug reports, because you got to be convincing and accurate and show your work, but that's not for here nor there. Proper process supervision. Thank you, Jan, for helping clarify that hypervisors are a truly unique process supervision use case. With your mail server, you launch it at boot of the host and you shut it down at the shutdown of the host, typically. With a virtual machine, you may have it reboot 5 times a day, sometimes for updates, sometimes for migration, countless things. So that whole model doesn't fit, and it took a while to fully understand what's right and not right there. The daemon command is not quite intended for that too. It's a little better than just an init script, but there's a lot to it there. Everyone wants faster networking, so a multi-queue TAP4 device would be great. Thank you, everyone. Ivy, Christoph, Provost, everyone who's improved the bridge support. It's faster. It's awesome. There's NetGraph. There's all sorts of cool tools. SRIOV is getting a lot of attention. So you have an enterprise-grade NIC. You hand it out, like one hopefully hands out cores on ARM64. You hand out hardware resources. Very cool. State tracking. This has been a challenge to jails. It's been a challenge to virtualization. You sit down at a VM and wonder, how did I get here? What's the backing storage? How was it launched? There's not a whole lot of transparency on what the VM is doing. So that's an opportunity for many great things. And no VM is an island. They require networking. They require storage. They need those prepared in advance before you boot, or very bad things happen. And you wonder, like, why can't I see the world or see my VM? So the traditional Unix model of stuff starting very linearly once is a challenge to virtual machines. Live migration. Everyone wants it. There is progress that we will discuss very shortly. And of course, a budget. My work's been out of pocket. That's why I'm so grateful, leading with the fact that people have added a donation to their participation today, because that helps cover costs, covers lunch specifically. It covered coffee and other stuff from the Family Mart in Tokyo, and on. But there's been this weird secrecy. I don't get it. Stealth startups, secret chat channels. Sometimes some of that's FreeBSD, some of that's just open source in general. Secret funding. And my favorite simple story there is that a company doing proprietary OS on FreeBSD as their new product threw a whole bunch of money to Bangalore to do 386 support, meaning 32-bit i386 support. And they got nowhere. And John Baldwin probably did it on a weekend because he needed it for debugging i386 kernels. So communicate. It's invaluable. It's absolutely invaluable. So stealth open source, I'm calling it, maybe is a better term, but it's not the flex you think it is. In fact, altogether now, stealth open source is not the flex you think it is. I don't know if we should make t-shirts, stickers, banners, whatever, but it has not helped Beehive. That's, I think, what's been getting to me. It's like, well, wait a minute. There's all this exciting, there's this money and this stuff and all these startups and Nahani and stuff. Some of it trickles down, but not always. And technical debt generally is downstream. Upstream is awesome. FreeBSD is actually really well thought out when it comes to what do we keep? Do we throw stuff out? Do we just keep moving forward? And they've kept moving forward for decades. And I'm sure some of you were in the Dev Summit. It takes enthusiastic discussions of like, well, what compromises do we make to keep it going forward in a way that satisfies the needs of so many people? So I really like the BSDs, if it's not obvious, the model of the license, the development models, the code tree from Kirk and company at Berkeley. It all is just logical. And thank you everyone who's helped make that possible. In the spirit of transparency, there were secret Beehive calls back in the day, and developers discussed important secret stuff, and then they petered out for whatever reason. And so, as many in this room know, there are production user calls, 3 a week on the trifecta, on Jails, OpenZFS, and Zones, and Beehive. You are all welcome to be there. Many of you have been there. Show of hands, including Katsu, Hans, the Patrick, the AV, Jan, you very present, DCH and company and all. And thank you, Greg. I think that cadence is important. It's a major investment on everyone's part. It's not been financially my best judgment, but it just has to happen. And here's the secret. The agenda is open. If you want something discussed, slip it on there. And if it's interesting, we'll discuss it. You can just watch the video. So you don't even have to attend. It's great. We have lots of flies on the wall, and that's absolutely welcome. I think openness is absolutely critical to moving forward, because that's what got us all in this room today. Planning this event was all done in the open. Funding it is in the open. It's I think, the best match for free software. And I do want to keep BeehiveCon free of charge. Always has been. Thanks again for those who donated, but hey, it's open. So, project incubation. Jan, how long did it take us to fully understand the process supervision challenge? Like a multi-year discussion. We had multi-year discussions on ZFS headers in the base OS so that third-party software can build against it. And it's super inside baseball. It's super low level, but these conversations have to happen. And so often we all have a gut sense that something's suboptimal, but we don't know what the answer is. And having people vocalize that challenge they're facing, the code they're working on, having a subject matter expert describe their own project is probably more valuable to them than us, despite the appearance of the opposite. So thank you everyone who has been a part of that. It's effective. It has results. Communication. If you want to support any of this, there's BSD Fund, something I've had since 2011 and announced in Mars and EuroBSDCon. Any ZFS users here? Any one or two? Okay, show of hands. Oh, yeah. There is a user and developer summit in Portland, Oregon next month. You are cordially welcome to be there. It was a blast last year. Uh, it's a bit like this event, but on steroids with things like Argentinian barbecue and other fun stuff. So I hope some of you can make it to that. From the calls, meeting weekly and taking an idea and just exploring it and re-exploring it and clarifying and asking and that got the 9P server support, which was sitting there from FreeNAS 10 years earlier, but just never quite reached completion. We got it over the finish line. There was a GSOC project for MAC filtering for jails. The MAC address, well, if you have a jail, you probably just want to make it look unique to that. The project was stalled from the documentation, not the code. Luckily, the developer was still around and was happy to clean it up and get the feedback they needed from those who are native English speakers in this case. And that got across the finish line. Hans took a little fundraising. We got the TPM work in. It's a lot of baby steps, but with something, a tool that has a different priority for every different user, well, we just kind of polish each little corner of it and keep it going. I consider BeehiveCon fair game for jail topics and zones, and we may get to that later, but right here, right now, Jamie, the official maintainer of jails, is making some great progress on KQ support. I mentioned the networking and storage that all make something virtual work, because it's an island without that. Kernel notifications like, hey, did your storage appear that you'll need? Jail descriptors, back to the whole problem with Beehive of like, I sat down at a virtual machine. How did we get here? Well, the more you can describe a jail, be it through the file system like descriptions, and Jan, maybe you can elaborate on this later. I just get the geeks talking. K-event support, there are open reviews. This is a text right out of them. Jamie, the jail maintainer. Yes, Mecca.
What's the difference between the first and third?
The first and third?
Yeah.
They're in the reviews. Take a peek. I can bring them up later.
K and is KQ basically, so.
Please, Jan. Yes, they're all related.
The first one is tracking a jail by its JID using jail. The second one is adding descriptors so that you can have a little crypto reference a jail. And the last one is adding K-event support through the descriptive. Yeah, I get used to pulling meeting at the file descriptor, so yeah, PG doesn't do that.
So let's touch on that after the official discussions and explore that. Jamie, bless his heart, is in Oregon, but I discovered that in Ottawa. He's like 40 minutes from where I live. That was a pleasant surprise. He was on autopilot. He would fix bug reports as they came up, but there was no user feedback on jails. And he's not against expanding jails, but no one was asking for anything. So just bringing people to the table, describing the real world needs. Thank you, Doug Rabson and DCH back there on massive OCI progress and the Enterprise Working Group. It's just bringing people together, and wow, it's exciting what is coming out of that. So here's the agenda. We can be flexible on that. Lunch is probably the most firm thing there. Speaking about funding advancements for things that nearly everyone wants, Hans will discuss his CPU ID work and a project that happens to be the foundation for live migration, like you see on other operating systems. Years ago, the calls avoided a hard fork of Lumos Beehive and FreeBSD Beehive. So Hans can enlighten us on what needs to happen to keep them machine independent, OS independent, and then machine dependent. We'll take a break, probably compress it to save time. Alexei will join in remotely about GPU pass-through. That's been a holy grail that people have wanted for years, and he's taught the groups, the meeting call groups, more about the famous GPU reset bugs that every system seems to have, and he will talk quite a bit about that. It's delightful to watch his progress. And does anyone know Alexei? He just showed up on Discord and is doing the right thing at the right time and sharing notes and has jumped in, is doing amazing work. At 14:30, some folks will head off to the Nikola Tesla Museum as announced at the Dev Summit, but Haizam will join and tell us about Silva, a Proxmox-like manager for JL's Beehive and other things in FreeBSD that I'd say is showcasing FreeBSD. He's an absolute delight to work with, and that's exciting. The folks at Karios will join, Ian and Chuck. And then we'll have some little talks from individuals about how they use Beehive in production. I want this to be interactive. I want this to be a soft thing. Gun will probably share a few words on Beehive and jails and some of your work. Patrick is very interested in TrueNAS Core and its future and its alternatives and its perhaps new form in zVault.io. So I hope you can stick around for that. Perfect. And everyone wants clustering, but doesn't always have a firm definition of it. Patrick, you'll have a discussion on was it SeaweedFS in the next few days. And Dave, you've certainly moved mountains on your various clusters. And we will touch on those as appropriate as the day unfolds. That's what I have to say. Any questions here and now? Restrooms are either out and about past the registration or down the hall here. Bless you. Welcome. So, thank you so much for coming. Come on, set up, Hans. We have exceeded all expectations on the registration. Double P Philip is very impressed. I hope we have food for everyone, but if not, we'll figure something out. I just, above all, thank you. Seriously, it's just been so good to meet with so many diverse folks from around the world. And after lockdown, we all kind of learned, we learned that, so you're good. Let me give you this microphone. We learned that we're down to time zones, languages and time zones. Otherwise, it's like, hey, let's just jump on a call with, be it Melbourne, be it Belarus, be it Berlin, all the time. So seriously, thank you.